Hey guys, Red here. So I basically want to just make this right quick to let everyone know that there will be spoilers for Kuros, both of Kuros series, Dead and 5 years later. Basically, I have questions about spoilers about it, so I'm sorry, spoilers. Tired pretty much. Yeah, Kuros a good guy, and I really like talking to him, and I hope this can happen again. This is the first Red interview I've done in a while, and I hope I can continue. I'll see you guys in the video. Hey guys, Red here, and I am joined with KurotheArtist, or how do you pronounce that?
Correct.
I'm like, okay.
Kuro. I've gotten it. I mean, there's no like official pronunciation. I personally say Kuro, but if you say Kuro, it's whatever.
I'm just trying to make sure I don't pronounce it wrong. So, let's begin by, I'm just going to introduce you to the audience, okay? So, this is...
Okay.
I mean, if you don't mind, if you want to introduce yourself, be my guest, literally.
No, go for it. It's your show.
Alright, this is KurotheArtist. He is a comic book artist and writer. He only does his, to my knowledge, he doesn't do any like DC or Marvel stuff. He does some of his like own stuff, such as DEAD, Dead, and 5 years later, which I think, did you do any more comics besides that, or is that it?
I've done like one-shot comics. Like I made one time I did a comic that was like a spoof on the CW Flash, but that was literally just one page. And I do like short one-shots every now and then, but the only series I have currently going is Dead and 5 years later.
Okay. So I will put this flat out there. I'm a fan of both of them, and in researching you for the interview and whatnot, I looked into Dead, and I'm so hyped for that series to come back, because honestly, it's so good. So...
Thanks, man. Yeah, Dead is actually a project I really was hoping to get it back into. Just like 5 years later, I wrote out the entire thing before I even wrote the first chapter, so there's tons of like storylines and mythology that I'm planning to develop, but just because of how complicated of a series it is, I'm only really able to focus on one series right now, and it seems like 5 years later is kind of the demand, so that's where I'm gravitating.
Oh, so in other words, your other series is not dead.
No, it is on an indefinite hiatus, but it will get completed at some point. Like, I will never give up on it.
I tried to make a pun. I don't know if that really went over your head. So, your other series is Dead. Like, that's the title of the series. The pun was...
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. I'm full of something. I'm not really sure what it is. But, okay, so... for the people who do not know about either of your series and is new due to this interview... Could you give us a brief description of both of them? Can you give me a brief description of both of your series, Dead and 5 years later?
Yeah, of course. So Dead is basically a series. It's about this character, Marshall Perkins. Of course, in the first chapter, he wakes up, he's already dead. And basically, after what he thought was just like a simple task, he ends up becoming the king of hell. So he's like basically in charge of like what Lucifer is in charge of. He has all the abilities of like whatever you would call him. I mean, he's basically just called a demon, but the extent of his powers isn't something that I feel I should fully develop yet. Well, I mean, I do have them fully developed. I'm just not sure if I should talk about it right now. But the story parallels between what he's doing from when he is dead onwards. Like, he has to have his soul trapped in the form of a rag doll to exist in the physical world, which is sort of a gimmick I developed. It was one of the first things I thought of, so no matter what, I tried to make that work towards the story. And not a lot in the earlier chapters, which are pretty much the only ones out right now. You start seeing glimpses of what happened when he was alive and how the two storylines start intertwining. But in more specific manners, it's really just about different adventures. There's a superhero adventure I have planned. Be trying to combine every genre you possibly can and just have the characters experience it through their own perspectives. But the main idea I have of it is the character Marshall Perkins. A lot of people write their main characters so that they're relatable to the audience, and I'm actually trying to make the most unappealing character possible. He's offensive. He's not caring really about anyone around him. He's very narcissistic, but he's very intelligent too. He doesn't do brash movements. Usually everything he does is very thought out. But what I'm trying to do is write a character that an audience member cannot connect to and does not like, but is still interested in seeing how their story goes forward. Was that a bit too much?
No, that was awesome, man. That's great. Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, so on the screen I just put up a picture of the ragdoll version of Miracle Perkins, like he just described the ragdoll one. I just put up a picture of it so you guys have an idea. Basically, King of Hell is stuck in a yeah. So he just described it. Here's a picture of the main character. So yeah, and let's do 5 years later.
5 years later is obviously it's a crossover continuation of both series, Ben 10 Omniverse and Danny Phantom. A little bit of background, I personally chose to make Danny Phantom the main character of the comic because I'm extremely biased towards Ben, and if I either made him the main character or I tried to balance both of them out, I would still gravitate towards him. So it focuses mainly from Danny Phantom's perspective of the story, where it's been 5 years. Ever since the end of the series, he hasn't been doing heroics anymore because all of his father's work has pretty much made ghost hunting a regular thing now. All police officers are armed with ghost hunting tech, so he was able to just kick back, relax, try to get a normal life going, developing more into like sciences and everything that his father does. And through a series of acts, his father ends up not being able to complete, was trying to create a cross-dimensional portal, sort of like an expansion off of the ghost portal. Danny tries to complete the work. He ends up in a different dimension, known as the Null Void in the Ben 10 universe. He runs into Ben, they meet up, and from there you're just gonna have to read on.
Yeah, actually that's a really good description because I personally, if I was given that, I would totally read on.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's just move back to Dead for a bit. So let's move back to Dead because that's gonna be a topic for a few of the questions, and then we're gonna move on to the other stuff, and then yeah. Alright, so with the Dead, where did the idea for Dead come from?
The idea for Dead was, it was actually just a joke. It started with, I was messing around with my brother Alex. We were just goofing around. We were actually arm wrestling, and he said something along the lines of, he was like, "Oh, do you think you can beat Lucifer or something in this arm wrestling contest?" And then I was arm wrestling him, and then I beat him, and he was just like, "You have now been crowned the new champion," because we were just like saying random nonsense. And then overall, like a little bit prior to that, I've been trying to think of an idea for a comic, and then that was always in my head on what happened right there. And when that happened, I was kind of happen if like someone was just unknowingly given the powers of Lucifer. Like it's a very weird, it just kind of seemed like there was something I could work with. And I took a character design, Marshall's doll form, the yellow one with the long black hair, was actually a design I created 5 years ago, just as an avatar for friend Kwa Win, and I just started taking elements of things I have developed over the course of a couple of years and trying to mesh them all together and seeing what I can form based around the idea of a kid just given the powers of Lucifer out of nowhere, and for some reason he can't. So a lot of things like Paul's abilities, that was something developed early on too. That was worked into the stories. It kind of fits the whole feel of the comic too. It's a random chaos of a whole bunch of different directions and ideologies and possibilities and themes, and it's just like a cesspool, but in a way it works.
Interesting. That actually like is really good idea wise. I think that's actually rather interesting. I popped up the picture of, now I know you want to dub and you want to give voices to 5 years later. Do you want to do the same with Dead at some point?
I actually already had a voice cast for Dead last year. There was a video game in development for Dead that actually got extremely far into production, almost up to a beta release, but the programmer, Anthony Hubbard, ended up having, he discharged to the army. I don't know if I used the correct verb there, discharge, but anyway, he went to the army and was in basic for 4 months and was not even able to communicate with the outside world, so that put a permanent halt on it. And he's actually recently got into production with it again, and I am in touch with the original voice cast. There is a video on my YouTube, KurotheArtist, right now that says Meet the Cast of Dead, where you can hear the voices of all of the comic book characters.
That's cool.
Thank you.
I'm like, I was seriously thinking, okay, well he's just gonna, well no, you already thought of this one, okay. Alright. So, okay, so next question. are you planning on either moving or putting either Dead or 5 years later on a web comic app such like Webtoon, or are you just gonna leave it on your Facebook and a website?
I mean, I'm open to putting it on any server I can. I've been trying to put it on this website. I forgot what it was called. It's like a very popular website comic thing. As long as I know like of its existence, I'll try to put it up on there because I'm really not worried about having everyone directed into one area. Like, I would like if everybody read it off of my website, but really I'm just trying to reach the most amount of people as possible. So if I can put it on any app or website in addition to what I have it on already now, I would probably do it.
So is there anything we can look forward to with Dead?
Well, right now the comic is still in hiatus. The video game is still in production, actually. What I can do is I can send you a link you can put into the description of this video where you can see the game developer's diary of the production on the beta that's probably going to release by the end of the year maximum, but probably months prior. In fact, I'm ballparking an October release. As for the specific comic, though, I am not able to work on it at the time as I'm balancing 5 years later along with other various YouTube properties.
Can you specify what's the other YouTube properties?
There's one project right now I actually can't get into because it's a collaborative effort and I'm not the primary asset in this production. All I can say is it's something a lot of people are going to be excited for, and it's with someone you would not expect me to be working a lot right now. I probably will be able to start talking about it in November. But other than that, I am in production of a original YouTube series. It's in very, very, very early stages. We don't even have a title for it, but we're trying to get that going. And of course, more discussion videos.
All right. Now let's get on to 5 years later. So I know in the 39 facts about about 5 years later, which I'll be honest, I watched before I read the comic because I didn't know what you were talking about entirely. Like, I'm like, 5 years later, what's this? And I'm like, I click on it, I'm like, oh, cool. So in the video, you had explained that you redid the story, and it was originally fan fiction, really, but you redid it so it's just mostly story driven. What were you meaning? What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, the original version, I was planning to write as a one-shot where Danny and Ben would meet up for some reason, fight for an inevitable reason, and that would pretty much be it. I didn't even write a conclusion to what was happening. As I was writing it, it was very, very two-dimensional. There wasn't an overall plot going on. I was just kind of making it up as I went, and it was more just to be entertaining, but that's pretty much why the production died off. I didn't really take it as seriously. When reworking it, I came up with an overall theme I wanted to have for the story, and try to interweave it in a lot of the chapters in the script. I tried to make the characters match more of how they would be in the television show by studying their speech patterns, personality quirks, to make it really feel like that's genuinely like the Ben or the Danny, even though it's not, because I am not like an official writer of the show. But I'm just trying to make it as legitimate as I can, rather than it just being a fun Danny Phantom Ben 10 comic.
Okay, that's actually really cool though, honestly. So you had said that you're very biased towards Ben 10. So do you have a favorite Ben 10 series?
That's a loaded question. I think factually, I would have to say I think Alien Force, specifically seasons 1 and 2, is the best, just because it's the best put together. It's the best written. The plot arc is very tight knit, and it really has a character growth progression. But I'd say overall, I really enjoy Ultimate Alien, just because that's a lot where the cool stuff is. But Universe did play around with a lot of time travel and alternate universes, and I'm a sucker for stuff like that, which is pretty much the reason I'm doing 5 years later. But yeah, I'd have to say Alien Force, I guess.
I was honestly curious, because I like all of them, so I'm not really sure like which one's the best. But like I'm honestly curious about other people's opinions with that stuff.
Of course.
I know with some of the Danny Phantom fandom, there is hatred towards the season 3. What is your feelings on it?
Well, honestly, well, I was watching Danny Phantom like as it was coming out, and I was very young at the time, so I didn't really understand the giving, like the action, the characters, this and that, and I didn't really see a difference between the first two seasons and the third until looking back at it in the more recent couple of years. But I still don't understand the hate. In fact, I don't really believe it's that different. I think they were just trying to build upon the world of the show and didn't entirely know how to do it. But with the cast and crew and resources they had, I think they did the best they could. And I personally don't understand why it's disliked. In fact, I think Phantom Planet is one of the best episodes.
That's actually rather interesting. I mean, not just being that people have different opinions, but I'm more saying it's really interesting to hear someone going, it's not that bad. I watched as a child. I didn't think it was that bad. I rewatched it now. Didn't think it was that bad. Instead of somebody just hating it all.
Yeah.
And it's actually rather interesting to hear reasons why and stuff. Alright. So in the beginning comic of the first volume, I think it is, I'm just going to compliment you for a few minutes. You did an excellent job with grabbing from the show about their origin stories and putting it into comics so people who don't know about either one can read about it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Like, honestly, I love both the series. I'm all caught up on both the series because one of them stopped. Well, technically both of them did. But honestly, I think it is amazing how you adapted both the art style as well as both Ben 10 Omniverse art style and Butch Hartman art style, which I can only imagine was difficult or challenging.
It was more of just picking and choosing because I've always actually been influenced. Butch Hartman was my biggest influence drawing growing up, just because of Fairly Odd Parents was probably the first show's art style I tried to adapt to, and then of course when Ben 10 came along, I tried to have those art styles. So my art style was already very influenced by both shows. For the 5 years later art style, all I really did was try to crank it up to 11 and really express like the dynamics and characteristics that each show has. Whereas in something like Dead, it still has the influences of like Danny Phantom and Ben 10 art style, but it also has my twist to it. So with 5 years later, I sort of just subtract my twist and just leave all the influences I had.
Okay, so this is another question. With designing the characters for the show, for the comic, I should say, how did you choose what it should look like, how they should have grown through the 5 years? Because with Danny Phantom, he can see he's 20 years old. He kind of looks kind of young. I don't know if I have a picture of it. It might not. Yeah, I don't think I have a picture of... Shoot. That's what I missed. But it explains away his friends with them doing stuff Butch Hartman said 10 years later, which is awesome. By the way, thank you for doing that because it makes it, like he said, canon, technically. But then how did you choose to... Okay, so my question is, so when designing the characters for this, how did you choose for them how to look? If that makes sense.
I really wanted their clothing to reflect on their personality, which I think is something every artist can get to, but I really tried to put myself in their shoes. Upon rewatching Danny Phantom, I've noticed there are 3 separate times in the show where Danny had the chance to give up his powers, and he did. See, I think Danny was only a hero because he had to be, because he was given this ability and didn't really know what to do with it. And now that I made ghost hunting such a normal thing, Danny really is just a very normal person. So I just tried to keep him in, like, very... desaturated clothing, very like warm clothing, something you'd see like someone just trying to be comfortable or regular in, nothing really standing out. Whereas Ben, in every series, he's always trying to, he doesn't admit it, but Ben likes to be very fashionable, if you can pick up on it. I mean, he has a custom green jacket when he is 15 years old. Even in the first series, like he was always the only one wearing something like cut custom, for lack of a more diverse word. And in Omniverse especially, he like had his own tailored clothes and everything. Like in universe, they probably weren't like that. That's just a stylistic choice. But so in 5 years later, I wanted Ben to keep up with like the kind of modern fashion trends. So I was thinking he did the jacket look, he did the cool T-shirt look. What else is something? So I thought of like a sports Letterman jacket. So I did a little bit of research on that. I thought a lot of people in their early 20s are wearing beanies nowadays. Try to make him modern, but also keep it very natural to his character's progression.
And something I'm looking back on, I didn't put it as a question, but I'm honestly curious now. With the 5 years that's progressed, how come Rook looks pretty much the same, besides maybe height difference?
I couldn't really think of a direction to go into Rook. It's kind of just like with regular humans. Like once you reach about 20, 25-ish, you pretty much look the same until you start getting noticeably old with wrinkles. I changed Rook a teeny bit. Like I gave him cat-like eyes instead of the circles. I gave him 3 points on his chin instead of 1 to try to see lead towards the beard that was shown in the future at the end of Omniverse. But really, I don't think Rook would care about trying to keep up diverse styles, and he probably would pretty much look the same. I'm guessing he's probably about 24 in 5 years later, since his age was never really specified in Omniverse. But there's really no reason for Rook to look any different unless I was going out of my way to make him, but then that's defying his character.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That actually was really good reasoning.
Thank you.
So you said in the 39 facts about the 5 years later, which I'm going to reference again, that the plumber recruits are based upon you guys' group. Who's based on who?
Yes. Pull up a picture of the group for myself to look at so I can tell you.
Oh, okay. It's like, are they based on via like appearance or whatnot, or are they?
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was like their favorite aliens that they were put on.
Well, everyone someone's based on, I let them design themselves. The galvanic mechamorph, who is an avatar of Alex, known as the Insane Dude 24, the character designer, he created that avatar himself, as well as Hershey, who is the yellow fish-looking dude. If you want, I can reveal their names to you right now if you want. They don't say them until they appear in a future chapter, since I kind of skipped it in chapter 2. But starting from the left, the very bug-looking dude, his name is Chirp. The purple bug next to her is Eve. I mean him, sorry. That's Eve. The galvanic mechamorph is Gotro, spelled like this.
Oh, okay.
Then Lula, and then Crunch.
Interesting names. Did they design the names themselves, or you just went, oh, these would be interesting names?
Hershey came up with Crunch for himself. Alex cycled through a couple of names, and that name is actually how you pronounce his last name. His last name is spelled with like an accumulation of vowels, and I asked him how you pronounce it, and he typed in that, Gotro. And then I was thinking, that actually just sounds like a cool name. Why don't we just call him Gotro? So we did.
That's actually really cool. Alright. So, I was messaging you earlier on Facebook, which he has a Facebook. I believe I'll hopefully remember to link down in the description. If I don't, I'll probably update it later. So you had said I can ask you about the future, I can ask you the spoilers, but you might not answer the questions. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna ask you.
Yeah, I will. Spoiler. Okay, you can ask away, but I might be limited to certain answers. But by all means, you can ask.
That's fine. Like honestly, whatever. So what do we have to look forward to as? Okay, so a question. Is chapter 3, I think it's chapter 3. Is chapter 3 done, or have you paused, and are you still writing it? Are you still drawing it, I mean?
Chapter 3 for 5 years later is out right now.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. So, once it's out, the chapter's done.
Oh well, are you asking about chapter 3 specifically? Because chapter 3 is it's been out for about a month.
Well, I was wondering if it was done, like if the next one's gonna be chapter 4, or if you're gonna continue from chapter 3.
Oh no, yeah. Everything that gets released is a new chapter. So chapter 3 is
Okay, chapter 3 is done. Okay.
so,
Well, I wasn't
yeah.
sure because all the other chapters had this little ending about the cast, about the editors and stuff, but like that one didn't. So I was like, huh, maybe it's not done yet. But
Yeah, that was just a formatting thing that I've done now. I took all of the credits and editing for chapter 3 and I put it all on that one page where explaining the characters.
Okay.
So yeah, it was just to shorten the amount of pages I had to create.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. So there's a. Oh, I'm in spoilers, and I should have spoiled it a while ago. I probably just didn't post. The mastermind. Is that Ego? Ego? I don't remember how to pronounce that.
Ego? Oh,
Is
where?
that who that is? I can't remember. Okay, the mastermind. Eon, yeah, that's what it is. Eon. Curious if-
Yeah, the mastermind is Eon.
Okay, I wasn't sure because it was going over different names, so I'm like, maybe it's a different character, and we just don't know who this one is. So I just wasn't really.
Well, like
positive.
I said, I'm trying to create a story that anybody could read, and Eon's a pretty integrated character in the Ben 10 canon. So I figured if I'm going to use him, I'm going to need to reintroduce him entirely. So in the first 2 chapters, he doesn't say his name, he doesn't say anything about him. So it wouldn't really make sense to call him Eon in the characters. But starting with chapter 4, you're going to learn a lot more about Eon.
Okay, so that is who that is. It's just named
Yes.
differently.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so. Alright, so with Eon being a time-traveling, dimensional traveling bad guy from the Ben 10 universe, my question is other time-traveling people going to appear in 5 years later?
Could you rephrase the question?
Okay, so in Danny Phantom and in Ben 10, there are in both series there are time traveling people.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is to help Ben / Danny with Eon or the Mastermind. Are the time traveling people going to come in and help, or are they going to stay out of it? Such as Dr. Paradox for Ben 10, or such as Clockwork for Danny Phantom.
That's also something I feel like I shouldn't talk about. The only one I will talk about is Paradox, actually, which is very interesting. Paradox existence is pretty much making me rewrite a lot of the scripts because I've written it to be very like canon to the Ben 10 universe, and usually Paradox just shows up and tells the whole team exactly what they need to know to go do the mission, and I feel like that takes away from the mystery. So I'm actually trying to go back to all the scenes where I used Paradox as an explainer and see if I can rewrite it to where the group can figure it out themselves. So I'm actually trying to use Paradox as little as possible, so I can't exactly say when he'll show up. As for any other time travelers, I shouldn't be talk about it right now.
Okay, okay, but is the time traveling alien okay to appear? Ben 10's
You mean Clockwork?
Yes, the Ben 10, not the Danny Phantom.
I can't confirm or deny who will appear other than Paradox.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I didn't know if that counts as time travel, because technically one of his powers is to see what happens beforehand. So I wasn't.
Yeah, with the Clockwork Ghost in world, the way I see how he works is he has time powers, obviously, but he's only really bound to Danny Phantom's world. Like, he treats that entire Earth like it's his whole universe. So I don't think the Danny Phantom Clockwork would be able to have his powers affect all of the other dimensions, which makes him hard for me to use.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense, but I don't know if I specified. I was referring to the Ben 10 alien clockwork.
Ah, see, I thought you were at first, but then I wasn't sure if you meant that clockwork. So Ben's alien clockwork. The only thing I can say about Ben's aliens is every single alien will be redesigned and either used or referenced at some point in time.
Okay, I honestly kind of want to see the redesigns. Like, I know I'm gonna have to wait, and that's fine, but I'm honestly really curious on the redesigns because I love all of these. Well, some of these aliens. So, okay, so
A lot of the redesigns are handled by Alex. I'd say at this point in time, we have about 2/3 of the aliens like redesigned, but only about 1/3 that have any official art right now, and some of them are still up in. But that does not mean they will be used. There, I can confirm there's at least 3 aliens we know for sure we're going to use further down the line that just don't have designs yet.
okay, wow, that's cool. I'm really looking forward to that right now. Like, I'm so hyped right now. It's not even funny.
Thank you.
Alright, so with you starting to dub the comics, there is a time where Butch Hartman's, well, a character who looks strikingly familiar to Butch Hartman is going to appear. Are you going to reach out, or have you already reached out to him to voice his own character? Because I believe he says a line.
Well, with the comic dubs, that's something that's not a major priority. That was it was an animation test for a potential project I might have the opportunity to work on, and I used 5 years later as a basis for it because it's something I'm very familiar with. I put in the video it's not meant to imply that there's going to be more. But with the success of that video, we have plans to try to make more, but right now it would not happen for at least 6 months or so. And that would just be chapter 1. So with Butch's cameo in chapter 3, since that's so far down the line, I haven't really worried about it much. Okay. If I were to animate it.
I wasn't. Oh, okay. Because I know when you had reached out and said, hey, if you guys want to voice in this, you have to have a good mic or whatever. So I wasn't sure like how that was gonna work, and then you just said it wasn't priority. So I'm like, hold on.
Yeah, so people are still welcome to audition for Ben and Danny for like the next 6 months, because until then, we're not gonna have an official cast for a dub.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So you are an excellent writer. I will put that flat out right there. I love you as a writer because I love the story that's going on through both Dead and 5 years later.
Thank you.
So, when you write, what runs through your head, or is it just a case of, this would be a cool idea?
I have a very distinguished habit of writing things out of order, and it contradicts with a lot of advice a lot of professional writers would give you. Is I think about the characters, and I think about what scenes could I create that would fully express their personality, their motives, maybe push them to the edge so you see who they are bare bones. So I just come up with scenarios in my head of characters interacting with each other, and I try to see if there's a way I can form a story around it. For instance, the confrontation between Vlad and Danny that happens at the end of chapter 5 was something I always wanted to happen. So the whole story was driven to make that moment happen. So it's a lot of you pick the story parts that you think is going to make the most impact, and how can you create a story that leads to that direction. What makes that bad advice is people will be so attached to these ideas they have in their head, and they will almost force their story to make those scenarios happen no matter what. And sometimes it feels like very inorganic storytelling. So sometimes you have to sacrifice ideas if they truly do not work to their story.
Okay, I think I understand. I'm trying to make sure I have all the questions off my head. Do you have anything you would like to add or comment on or discuss? as Paul.
Okay. What I could do to make this a little bit more special is I can give you a sneak peek at Chapter 4. Let me see if I have it on this laptop before I get too ahead of myself.
I mean, I don't mean to sound ungrateful. You don't have to if you don't want to.
I have what Gwen and Kevin are going to look like when they make their debut. That's the main thing I'm comfortable with showing. If you'd want to take a look at that,
Then yeah, I'll totally put it in.
Okay, I am sending it to you right now. So actually, this is a prototype version now. I've changed the color schemes since then. Like Gwen's not wearing a yellow shirt as she is in this picture. It's changed to blue. But outfit-wise, this is what I.
Here it is. All right. So again, thank you very much for showing us this. This will be in the video if you don't mind. Oh, yeah, I said it could be. So
Yeah.
So I noticed you kept the scar from Omniverse, which was, I think it was in the original been 10,000. Kevin, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, Kevin had that scar when he was Kevin 11,000, and I guess the writers really wanted Kevin to have that, so like Wildvine just smacked him in the face, and there it is. I think Kevin should have gotten the scar from something more impactful.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems I feel like Omniverse has. There's a ton of good ideas, but they end up being too excited. They rush.
Is that a Lucky Girl emblem on her belt?
Yep. She's still Lucky Girl, but she handles it a lot differently now in 5 years later, which I can only reveal in the...
Honestly, I'm really excited to see your work on both Dead and 5 Years Later. I'm excited to see your work about anything, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye!
Thank you. Have a great night, sir.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to edit the heck out of this.
Oh, good luck.
It's almost an hour long.
Oh,
right.
wow.
I will see you guys next time on Red Interviews. Bye!